if you have any issues with anything throughout the call, just throw it in the chat channel and I'll try to resolve it. But basically just wanted to say, you know, all locations will be welcome to join each of these every week, which by all locations, I mean 2 of our locations, but hopefully more to come. So, you know, today I'm going to give you a little bit longer intro than usual to help explain the purpose of these meetings and how you can get more involved. But each week we'll have a different theme. I'll introduce the speaker who will have, you know, around 30 minutes to present on their topic, and then we'll leave time at the end for questions. So, you know, the idea is that we're going to start by featuring experts in marketing, e-commerce, logistics, operations, but would love feedback from y'all on what you'd like to see offered during this time. So we really want y'all to help make this as valuable as possible. And I'm here in Dallas right now doing orientations, and one of our Dallas members even suggested doing a virtual beer tasting. So we're definitely open to ideas. Today's webinar is going to be led by our very own Paul Dorigo. So if y'all do not know, he's one of our co-founders. And if you haven't met him yet, prior to Saltbox, Paul founded a company called Ally Commerce, which is a turnkey e-commerce multi-channel solution, enabling brands to grow their direct consumer sales faster and more profitably. He also founded an e-commerce retailer called Unique Squared, which specialized in pro audio and DJ equipment. And his e-commerce experience began at UPS as an industrial engineer. So big thanks to Paul for taking his time, this valuable time, to share his knowledge with us today. So Paul, I'll let you take it away. Oh, and then at the very end, when he's finished, if y'all want to ask any questions, just go ahead and raise your hand and we can enable you to speak. I hold the power, I think. We'll see.
All right. Let's see here. I'll start my. All right. Is that presentation working for you, Leslie?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Yep.
Since we've got less than an hour and we want to leave a bunch of time for questions, and this is our first time feeling this out, I limited it to 3 tips for today. A little mix of kind of high level thinking about your e-commerce business, and then some very specific tips that hopefully people find valuable. So I'm going to go through the 3 R. First is about how to apply Pareto Principle thinking. We'll go into what that is, kind of a general way to look at your e-commerce business. Number 2 is about prepping before the order, or prep before the order. Then the last one is a very specific one that I find is not, maybe attendees here are aware of dimensional weight, but it's something that I've found in my time in e-commerce and even at UPS, something that a lot of merchants are not aware of and not aware of what it's costing them. So the Pareto Principle, we'll start with the first one here. This is just, I'll start first with the definition. A lot of you have probably heard it, 80-20 rule, different ways of talking about it. In a very formal definition, the Pareto Principle, named after esteemed economist, let's see if I can say this right, Vilfredo Pareto, specifies that 80% of consequences come from 20% of the causes, asserting an unequal relationship between inputs and outputs. This principle serves as a general reminder that the relationship between inputs and outputs is not balanced. The Pareto Principle is also known as the Pareto Rule, or the 80-20 rule. So in the formal definition, we're talking about consequences and causes, but in e-commerce, or really in any business, it's like about looking at your business and trying to identify where to spend your time and where to focus on. And so this is just kind of an example of, this is very common in e-commerce. I've heard this many times. It may not be true for everyone. It's not perfect, exact down to the number, but it's common that you say 80% of your sales come from 20% of your products, right? Your 20% of your products are your bread and butter. They're what drive the revenue, they're what drive the traffic, they're what drive the profit, all different ways that you can look at it. And so, in this example, it's like, say you have an entire product catalog. So you've got 1,000 items in your product catalog, and your top sellers are, you got your 200 that are your top sellers. And those 200, could account for 80% of your sales. So this is an example, and this is very common, but it's about looking at your business, and especially in e-commerce, looking at, in how you can apply this kind of 80-20 rule to how your business is running. And so, here's some examples of some decisions. And, when we do questions after, maybe somebody might have some thoughts, but here's some examples, like understanding what products constitute the bulk of your sales. So then that's where you focus on keeping those items in stock, right? And whatever's necessary. Do you have to do longer lead times? Do you have to focus on the supplier contracts? Do you have to, whatever's necessary to keep those items in stock? Not saying to just abandon the other items, that kind of goes into the next one here, discontinuing slow movers. I'm not saying that's the answer, but it's something to think about. Very common one is, this is always common, is like the shoe size example, right? A shoe store, I think it's no surprise. You talk to a shoe store and it's that core sizes that make up the bulk of their sales, because those are what is average and common out there in the population. But then, 80-20 rule, not necessarily saying to just abandon size 15 or 14 or whatever is a very, very odd size. It's just that you're aware of it, and then you make adjustments based on that, where you stock accordingly, you arrange your inventory accordingly. So, and that's why I put a caveat in here. The principle does not always capture true value. One example is, if you look at the 80-20 rule with your business in just revenue, sometimes that could be misleading, that accessories are often low revenue and high margin. And, for example, when I was in the music industry, cables and stands and all those kind of things are relatively low revenue, but they were very high margin. So it's there's many different ways that you can apply the principle. And one of the last ones that we can talk about was how you lay out your suite. And so, even in your section of Saltbox, you could do what's called like a forward pick area. Those 20% of the SKUs, keep that in that forward facing area, where it's the most upfront. It's the easiest to get to. And for the slow movers, the other 80%, maybe you keep a very small or manageable quantity, maybe 2 weeks worth of inventory, or even 1 week worth of inventory of those slow movers in your suite. It might only be a few of those items. And then you could use things like Saltbox's bulk storage or offsite storage for those items. You might still be required to order for those slow movers certain minimum order sizes and quantities from wherever you're procuring your items from. But it's about, you can optimize once you look at how your sales and how your inventory and such is dispersed with something like the 80-20 rule. You can utilize for those slow movers like an offsite storage solution that we have. So that's the Pareto principle. I don't know, Leslie, if we want to do sections of questions. I guess we can leave questions for the end, and people
I
can
can
go back.
if anyone has a question now, you can raise your hand, and if not, we'll wait till the end.
Sure. Wait till the end.
It looks like we're good to move on.
Oh, sorry. It looks like this went out a little out of order here. I'll have to go back. All right. The next one is, I always like to talk to e-commerce companies about prepping before the order. My example here is a pizza shop, and you will notice that they often pre-build the boxes for the pizzas. They'll stack them up. You go in there at 2 p.m. and there'll be just somebody sitting there, and they're making the pizza boxes, and that's all in preparation for the rush. And so that's often how e-commerce fulfillment is that you come in the morning, whenever you come in, 8 a.m., 9 a.m., and especially on a Monday, you got a huge list of orders to ship, and you want to get those out by whenever the pickup time is, or whenever you want to complete your shipping by, your cutoff 2, 3, 4 p.m., depending on how you have it structured. And so you have this finite window often of, unless depending on when you start to when you finish, of maybe 6 hours that you have to get all those orders out. So that's 6 hours out of a 24-hour day that you're trying to concentrate all your picking, packing, and shipping. So it's about prepping before the order. And so, here's some examples of things. Complete any kitting or product modifications in bulk. So that could be if certain items are sold together. I know if you sell like a certain product and it comes with an accessory, or it's a beard oil and it comes with a brush, or different things like that we've seen at Saltbox, that you try to do any of that kitting or product modifications in bulk before. Things like, I know very common, right, in e-commerce is promotional inserts in your products. And so, maybe if you have a lot of different box sizes, this might not be able to do them preemptively, but I know many, especially in e-commerce, you might be using like a lot of bubble mailers for a lot, is placing those promotional inserts. And I'm a big proponent of promotional inserts, for relatively low cost of printing this postcard. You have another touch point with the customer. Maybe you capture them or try to lure them into connecting on social media and such. And so, but again, that's a whole nother task that has to be done. And if you got 300 orders, now you have to do, in that 6-hour time period, you're trying to put 300 of these cards into 300 packages. And so these are another example of something that can be done prepping before the order. You can pre-make common boxes used for shipping, just like the pizza box example. Maybe you only use 2 or 3 box sizes, captures 80%, 90% of your orders. Okay, maybe after you've completed shipping or at off times or things like that, you can pre-make those boxes. And so these kind of tasks are really good. You can use Saltbox's eForce to help you, where they can work with you shoulder to shoulder and doing these prep type items. That this is just great work to get ahead of when the orders come in. And so I apologize, I'm not sure why it went out of order here. So the next is dimensional weight calculation. So this is just a very specific thing. Oh, sorry. Sure,
I actually have a quick question before we go into that,
Yeah.
the dimensional weight. So how do you think about, or like, what do you recommend thinking about, like the cost kind of, payoff for, if you want to get something shipped already pre-packaged? Like I know some products you can have them already like kitted and ready to go versus like doing that all yourself.
Well, this actually, also gets touched on in dimensional packaging. So it's always a tough trade-off of, it would be nice to have it all pre-packaged and set. But then what gets tough is let's say you like to, you have, I'll go to the beard oil example. We had a very dear member who sold beard oil. And, if you have, say, 3 formulations of beard oil, and each one you provide like a comb as a thing, it's just, if you pre-package all of that, the trade-off though is that you would have to stock 3 times as many combs, right? You would have to buy 3 times as many up front and tie up more cash and stuff. But maybe it is worth. So now you have to weigh that against the time that you save of just having it all set and prepaid. So probably in a low cost accessory like that, yeah, it's probably worth just triple your order of the combs and having prepackaged and have it come like that. If it's very expensive items that come together, it might be more advantageous to reduce your carrying quantities in such a case. Then the other thing is, it also depends on your product, right? Do you do any personalization? I don't know. Do you monogram it before you send it? Do you do some sort of something that the customer gets something special done to the product before it ships? So maybe it's not conducive to that, but at least on the other parts of the fulfillment process, like the packaging, like the inserts and things like, if you can do all that other prep work and just really, really get it down to the bare minimum of what tasks have to be done in that crunch time of the day starts and you're trying to hit cutoff and get all your e-commerce orders out. So that's my thoughts on that. You know, every time I'm happy to talk to anybody specifically about their situation. You know. So I'll jump into dimensional weight. This is just something I always really want everyone to know about. And maybe everybody already knows about this, but it's tricky and people. So a lot of people in e-commerce I've seen before where people are just thinking about the physical weight of a package, but you can be charged by the physical weight, or they call it actual weight, or you can be charged by the dimensional weight, and which is higher. So dimensional weight is calculated length times width times height. Now the standard is you divide that by 139. Now that 139, everyone, if you have a different contract, your UPS, your FedEx contract, even your post office contract, DHL contract, that 139 may be different. Now, if you think about the math of this, you want a number higher. You want 166, you want 180, you want, or it's a bigger divisor. That's all part of negotiation, which is a totally separate thing about negotiating carrier rates and things like that. But here's an example of the standard is usually 139. So this is why I want people to be aware of it. So we just take, this is an extreme example, but this is to help illustrate. Okay, let's say you got a pillow and the pillow weighs 3 pounds, right? It's just a pillow. But you think about the box, it goes, 15 inches by 20 inches by 8 inches. Okay, we do the math on that, 15 by 20 by 8. That comes out to 17.2 pounds. And the carriers will always just round up to the next pound. So you actually have a shipping weight of 18 pounds. So this is where a lot of times when you're using different shopping carts, shipping estimators and things like that, and even you can ship it. You could ship this pillow at 3 pounds, but then it's going to go through a scan tunnel, UPS, FedEx. They're going to apply a dimensional weight of 18 pounds, and then you're going to see an adjustment on your bill from 3 pounds. You paid 3 pounds, maybe you only charged the customer 3 pounds, or you only budgeted for 3 pounds of shipping. And then you get an adjustment on your bill for 18 pounds. So now it's 6 times the weight and, obviously a substantial increase. So this is something that if you just got to be really aware of, because that shipping adjustment comes and maybe it just absolutely wipes out all profit. And so you might be thinking up front, oh, we're making a lot of money on these pillows. It's great. We're selling for $100. It's $5 to ship them. Yeah, we make a bunch of money. Oh, but you're not factoring in these adjustments or the actual weight afterwards. So some ways to reduce dimensional weight. The package there is generally to protect it, right? So maybe you could do a smaller package, but you would inevitably want it to be stronger. So there's stronger boxes, there's higher pound, when you buy corrugate boxes, they'll show a pound weight test. It's kind of how strong it is. So maybe you can go smaller. Dunnage, the word dunnage is like all that packing material like around a package. So maybe you can do better dunnage, higher quality, things like air pillows or foam versus just a big, huge box full of craft paper. And, and this is where kind of like to your question, Leslie, about maybe you can look at your products being optimally packed for shipping directly from the supplier. So just, it's not that other layer. I mean, I think we've all received something, from Amazon or something where it's kind of like a box that probably could have been shipped inside of another box. And that box is expansive and cavernous and full of paper and stuff. And so that's kind of what you want to avoid. And so that was a lot quicker, but than I was thinking. But those are 3 kind of quick tips I wanted to share with everyone, and they're kind of open-ended. And so
thank you. That was a great place to start. Does anybody have any questions about any of those things or about anything specific to your business that you'd like to ask?
Yeah, happy to discuss anything.
Yes, Miss Drea.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Hi. Okay. So, Paul, on the dimensional weight side of the boxes, when you go in to insert, I guess, your measurements and your weight, does it always give you the option to put in dimensional weight, or does it just have, pounds and ounces?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So if you use a piece of software like a ShipStation, or you go on, stamps.com, ups.com, and you put in the dimensions, then yes, they will calculate the dimensional weight. So it's very good to put in those dimensions. What can get tricky is if you're selling products on your Shopify store, and it's tough to go put in dimensions for everything, and then it even gets tougher of, okay, if they buy 3 things, what size box is it going to be in? So, and I know there's some complicated ways to deal with that, and it's tough. But yes, if you put the dimensions into a ShipStation, into that, you will get a dimensional weight, and you will see the real, you'll see that 18 pounds, not the 3 pounds. And so, but that's why it's important to, and a lot of e-commerce operators, they might in their Shopify store only put in pounds, not put in anything for dimensions. Then that feeds to ShipStation. Then they're just shipping based on pounds, and then they're getting hit with big adjustments on their bill. So that's a great question. Thanks, Drea.
I have another question, Paul. Just things that I hear people ask in the space. So back to kind of the like assembly of boxes and kitting and that kind of thing. If your boxes are a little bit larger, like I'm actually thinking of Angela with Bamboo, like if it's like a little subscription box, like do you recommend doing like all the boxes on one day of the week, so then when your orders are coming in, you're just filling them in, or kind of doing like 3 hours of one day is just boxes, and then that's going to go for like, that'll last you for like a couple of days, as opposed to like doing all the boxes that would last you for like 2 weeks? Like, do you know what I mean? Like, how do you, like, how,
Yeah.
what is the frequency that you recommend kitting? And I know it's probably dependent on the amount of orders you get, but
yeah, I mean, doing all the boxes there's a belief that, right, if you, like in an assembly line, like concentrate a task, basically like make all the boxes for the year, you will make all those boxes in the shortest amount of time possible, right? Because you concentrate it all. But then that kind of pulls into space as well, where you got all these boxes stacked up and taking up space. How in the operations that I've run, how we generally like to do it, this is what I found that worked best. And you see this a lot in like the restaurant industry too, with like in e-commerce, we would ship and cut off. We would tell our customers that the cutoff was 2 o'clock on our website. We'd ship till quarter came in at 2:30 or something like that. We would ship it just under promise, over deliver kind of thing. And so then by about 3 o'clock, that kind of rush and packing, run around, picking is over about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And then in that, we would do like a daily making of enough boxes to last for the next day or two, prepping of that. And that it was a little bit, it was slightly less intense work at the end of the day after you leave. And should the shipping, you struggle that day, you can't keep up, yes, you stopped taking orders at 2, but you're still packing till 4:30. Okay, that prep work is it unfortunately would be sacrificed that day, but that's better than not getting an order out. And so that's why it might be good to build that in as a daily thing, and then where it can be, if good news that you have so many orders that it has to be sacrificed, then you have a buffer to absorb it.
got it. Thanks. Angela, I saw that you unmuted. Did you want to say anything?
Yeah, I was just gonna jump in and have a
Hey.
comment on the, hey, on the on kitting. So I'm wondering if it has to do with more of the complexity of the kit than it does the quantity. Just because, like, for instance, we have 7 pieces that go into our kit, and what I tend to do is have the team to build at least 50, have 50 on hand. And
Mhm.
that way, if we have a rush or a any type of event that'll allow us to push out a lot, a big sale, we could fill as many, we could fill as, we would assume that there would be less than 50, but we could fill at least that many in a day. But if not, then we at least have some on hand so that we can get through the next week or so without having to build those kits because of the amount of pieces. And then the other benefit that I found was that the production time to make some of the pieces in the kit takes a little long. So if we're 50 ahead of the game, then we at least have time to kick off production when we get to that critical inventory point that needs to be reordered.
Yeah, yeah, and when you point out the complexity, that's a great point about also reducing errors in that, especially if it is complex, there's a lot of parts. Even if you have software that's making sure the proper items are being pulled off the shelf and everything like that, but if it's crunch time, you're trying to get 100 orders out in a few hours, and you're making these kits, 7 different parts to it, and you're working really hard, and it's just prone to error, right? Versus if in a controlled time assembly line style, you have maybe not 50, but 20 lined up at once, and you just go, okay, this item goes into each of these 20. Okay, this item. And so just a lot of reduction of errors, which can be a whole nother topic, but of course, in e-commerce, especially where errors are just one, the customer service, but also the cost to fix errors is just so costly. You have to do a whole nother shipment. Maybe you have to pay for a return shipment and another shipment out versus just swapping it out for a customer in a brick and mortar. So yeah, just when you point out complexity and then getting ahead of it, but then also the side benefits of reducing mitigating chances of errors. Yeah, that's great thinking.
Hey, Paul.
Hey,
Hey, how are you?
good. How are you?
Good. I had a question about reducing error too in the picking process. Do you know
Mhm.
of any new technology to basically reduce the errors? Like we're just having more and more SKUs, and I'm just having a bit of an issue with sending out the wrong product.
Right.
We're not as big as Amazon yet, but I know they use some type of technology to kind of scan where it is in the warehouse. Other than just basic labeling, have you seen anything new that we could use to reduce that?
Yeah. So when you at the most base level where you just want order accuracy, there's many warehouse management or picking systems that are out there for all different size businesses, and it's about that you, in the lowest cost way, is that you just become entirely barcode based, where every action requires a scan of a barcode. That means the software says, okay, go to this bin, and the bin is usually it'll say aisle A, row 2, level 3, or something like that, and you have to scan the bin. You can't do anything. You're just the employee is stuck there until they scan the bin, and the scan says yes, that's a correct bin, or that's not the correct bin. Okay, and then the next step is pull the item out, and then all your items have to have a barcode on them. That would usually be a UPC code. Same thing as if you then also put your products into retail, and then they have to scan the UPC code, and they can't do anything else. They cannot continue on their day. And so they scan the UPC code, says it's correct, says it's not correct. And then even another step is that they scan it into a bin or a tote or something where the order is going, and they would scan it into there. And then when they're packing it off, it would be this kind of the same process where they would take it out of the tote. They have to scan the tote. It says, yes, that's the correct tote. And they have to scan the item again. They have to, and they say, yes, that's the correct one for this order that you're about to print a label for. So I know it sounds like a lot of scanning, and when you're first starting off an e-commerce company, and I was there too, where it's like, oh, that's like a bunch of extra steps, that's just extra time, and you know, we'll just pay attention and we'll just make bright labels. But you'll see in every operation that scales up, they've all discovered how that level of checking and scanning is necessary once you have, you know, a lot of volume, because it's just too much for a person to keep track of and to be aware of. And so that's where you want to go. Now, when you get up to Amazon's level and stuff, they'll have all these like voice picking, or where like a little light pops up on the bin and that directs you to where, but the payoff for the investment in that kind of technology is just, you know, it's hard to justify. It's 10 years of investment and stuff. So what I always say is like that first base level is to get on a order management and kind of a warehouse management system, and where everything's barcoded and you use the barcodes that are on your product. So hopefully no incremental cost, at least on packaging or anything. You're just using the UPC code already on your product. And that then is the check and balance. And so the other thing about that, which, you know, not to get into this, is the micromanage or the management of it, but is that you see those scans and you can see people are working. You can see, oh, here they are, just every 30 seconds they are scanning something. So they're just working. Or if you see a gap of time where there's no scans, it's like, oh, well, that was their break. All right, great, it lines up. So, you know, it's the visibility, it's to take the cog load off of the picker, and then also gives you a lot of management. So, you know, we can certainly talk about different software like offline or different things that might work for you. And a lot can just use kind of like a cell phone or like a scanner on there, a little barcode scanner, and you know, can really help with that accuracy.
Yeah, it's definitely like that. It's definitely not too many steps. That was my next question, is what software would you recommend, and the actual scanner or the phone we would need to use?
Yeah, there's a lot of, you know, it's different side, right? There's the super enterprise level for 1 billion orders a day, but there's a lot of great ones. I know one that I've seen a lot of people use is SKU Vault. You know, kind of right sized for you know, e-commerce companies. And there's some other ones that have direct integrations to like Shopify, so that's great. And then they can keep track of your inventory, and then it can even help you on like purchase orders and the receiving side and things like that. And so, and you know, there's SaaS models, so it's not a huge, you know, not $10,000 up front monthly fee, keep it using, and so things like that. And so, you know, I think there's some software which we can talk to, you know, separately, of like that would really help you. And then the software manufacturer, they're very motivated to get you on there, get you comfortable with it, get your operation running on it. So of course you subscribe for many months. So
okay, thank you so much.
Kristen, I just had a follow-up question. I know Tracy had met with Alan from Saltbox, and they had discussed I think SKU Vault and some other inventory management systems, but are y'all currently using Finale, or what do you guys currently use for your inventory management?
Right, so we're using Finale, and I've also heard of SKU Vault as well. So I was just wondering if I need to just look deeper into Finale and see what they can offer me from there, since we're already using them. But I've also heard of SKU Vault too, so I'll definitely look into them as well.
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
And
you know, I'm not
have
a proponent of SKU Vault or anything, or we don't have any. So if Finale has that functionality, and you just need to enable it and possibly do some additional labeling, you know, kind of a one-time thing, because I think you guys already have UPC codes on your products. So it would just be about labeling the locations and stuff. Then, you know, it might be within reach. You know.
Perfect, exactly.
And then y'all use your inventory management for, like, it's a little bit more complex, right? Because you have like some stuff online and then you also have some stuff like in retail.
Yes, so Finale hosts all of it. I've just created different warehouses for the different locations, and we just launched in the Village Market at Ponce. So they do it a bit more manual until their online store launches.
Got it.
Yeah, right now we use everything with Finale.
Does it work pretty well to like, to figure out, you know, to talk between like the different inventories in the different areas?
Yes, I would say the only issue I'm still having is Finale doesn't have the ability to pull that reserved column from Amazon. I think their engineers are just still working on that, but I've asked them about that a long time ago. But that's the only issue I would say I've had so far. But everything links, everything integrates, and I really like Finale.
Nice. Thank you for sharing. You guys have a really unique setup. So it's like, I think we could learn a lot from you.
Of course, yes, I'm open to questions.
Angela, I see your hand raised as well.
Yeah, just to kind of talk through the scan process. I can appreciate being able to scale and using the scan out, the scan inventory management system. But what about when we're actually working with the shippers, having a scan functionality to track what we're putting in the bins to be shipped, so that we can ensure that even if they don't have time to scan them, or there may be like with the issue that they just had in Texas with the storms, they weren't scanning a lot of packages that were going out through UPS specifically. So is there any type of tracking system that we could invest in, either as a individual business owner or through Saltbox, so that we can ensure that when we put it in the bin, it's already beginning on that transit portion of its journey, as opposed to still sitting with label printed because they didn't scan it?
Yeah, so this is with UPS.
Yeah, specifically this time was with UPS. Christmas, it was USPS.
Are you running, at least with UPS, what's called an end of day? It depends on what software you're using, but it's called an end of day report.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not
and
using.
well, so what it does, and the USPS, I forget the name of it, but essentially it prints out like a barcode for the driver to scan. And when the driver scans that barcode, it is, you know, I haven't done one in like, I didn't do one last year, so I don't know if they changed it at all, but it scans it. In UPS, they would call it the end of the day. They scans it, and then that marks all of your packages for that day, in which are supposed, you know, presumably being picked up at that moment, as picked up by the driver.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And so
I've
it
heard
does
of
kind
that.
of a
I've heard
bulk.
of that
Yeah.
in, I think ShipStation uses it. ShipStation.
Yeah, if you use WorldShip, which is the software directly from UPS, ShipStation should be able to generate one. You know.
And is that something that we could ask the driver to do, even though they're picking up from multiple businesses? Is that something that we can?
Yeah,
ask
I
the
think
driver
we could certainly do that. Well, we could leave the that end of day with the just with the bin of packages, and the driver knows to just scan it. You know, it's only a matter of seconds for the driver to do it.
Right.
So
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
Sure thing.
Any other questions? Anything else you wanted to add, Paul?
No, I don't think so. Not at this time, but anyone, you know, always feel free to reach out to me, and you can always reach out to me on Slack as well.
Great.
Right in our Saltbox community.
And I'll post this in Slack as well, but for those, I don't think anyone on this call would benefit from this, but Brandable Box is now offering the Saltbox discount again, which was 20% off. So I've heard that they have really good prices already, and their product is really nice. And so it would just print your labels like right on your box for you, which could save a step if you're having to do the label on top of the box. But again, I'll post in Slack, and the code I think is Saltbox20 for the discount. So thanks everybody for joining. And as Paul mentioned, you know, if you have any follow-up questions for him, you can find him on Slack, or you can reach out to me and I can try to help, but I'll probably just go to Paul anyway. So, all right. Thanks y'all. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you.
Oh, Paul, Drea is asking if we can get a copy of the slides that you created.
Yeah, sure. It's in Google Drive, so I can share
Awesome.
the link. No
Thanks so
problem.
much. Are you going to share it here, and you want to share it?
Well, I'll share it in Slack, because once
Okay.
everyone gets logged out of here, they'll lose that.
All right, perfect. All right, thanks y'all.